In the name of God, hello everybody. This is session 9 of your discourse analysis lesson. Again, in this session, I want to talk about the relationship between topic and the content of each discourse. As you know, in the previous session, I talked about the formal markers for showing the topic shift in each discourse. I talked about the formal marker in just written discourse, which is paragraph. So far we have concentrated on the structural markers in written discourse. In a spoken discourse, there is not the visual prompt of paragraph initial line indentation to indicate a division in the discourse structure. So how do speakers mark topic shift? In the speaking, okay? One suggestion is that there are in fact structural units of spoken discourse which take the form of speech paragraph. So like written paragraph, we have a kind of speech paragraph and have been called paratones. Okay, we call each speech paragraph like written paragraph, we call it paratones. The speech paragraph or paratone, like the orthographic paragraph, is identified by its boundary markers. Paratone has a kind of markers and signs which show each paratone. So I want to talk about those markers and those signs. At the beginning of a paratone, the speaker typically uses an introductory expression to announce what he specifically intends to talk about. So we begin each paratone by a kind of introductory expression. This introductory expression is made phonologically prominent, and the whole of the first clause or sentence in a paratone may be uttered with raised pitch. So we start a paratone with a kind of introductory expression but with raised pitch. Okay, this is the start of each paratone. The end of a paratone is marked in a way similar to the turn signal. It can be marked by very low pitch. So at the end of each paratone, again we have a kind of introductory expression but with a very low pitch. Even on lexical items, loss of amplitude and the lengthy pause. Okay, alternatively, the speaker can use a summarizing phrase, often repeating the introductory expression, not necessarily low in pitch but also followed by lengthy pause. You see here, the most consistent paratone final marker is the long pause, normally exceeding 1 second. So these are the signs of each paratone. First, we start with a kind of introductory expression but with a high pitch. Then at the end of each paratone, we again repeat that introductory expression but with a low pitch, and at the end we have a kind of lengthy pause, okay, normally exceeding 1 second. So these are the signs of each paratone. Paratone means speaking paragraph. So for example, look at this kind of paratone. I found my drink was a great problem with them because then the other elements, and at the end of the paratone I tended to stick to my drink. You see here, we start with a kind of, this paratone begins with an introductory expression, my drink. This is a kind of introductory expression which shows the topic of this paratone. Then authored very high in pitch range, the first of the paratone, and closes again with the same expression. You see here, my drink, but low in pitch as a part of the speaker's summing up. and at the end of the paratone we have a kind of lengthy pause, you see here. So these are the signs of each paratone. But as you know and as you see in each example, of course there are internal aspects such as the semantic cohesion within the lexical field established by the words in each paratone. So in each paratone, speaking paratone or written paragraph, we have a kind of cohesion based on the meaning. We call it semantic cohesion. Okay, there are a kind of relationship, semantic relationship between the words in each paragraph and paratone. So we have a semantic cohesion in each paragraph or paratone. Okay, these are the markers of paratone. The other title is the discourse topic and the representation of discourse content. So what is the relationship between the topic and the content? A hypothesis underlying much of the work we shall report is that there is a specific connection between discourse topic and discourse content. The former, the discourse content, can be viewed as, in some sense, consisting of the important elements of the latter. Okay, if the representation of discourse content, can be presented as a hierarchy of elements in the discourse, then the topmost elements are natural candidates for treatment as the most important components of the discourse topic. So if we consider the discourse topic content as a hierarchy of elements, okay, the topmost of that hierarchy is the best candidate for the topic of the discourse. So if we consider the content of each discourse like a hierarchical structure, the topmost of that hierarchy is the best candidate for being the topic of that content. If it can also be shown that people remember these topmost elements better than others, then this might be evidence that what we have in our heads after reading a text are those elements which constitute the discourse topic. So if we read a kind of text, then after that ask for example from somebody to recall that text, that part of the text which the people remember is the best candidate again for the topic. And the people maybe sometimes usually remember the topmost element in the hierarchy. So this is the best candidate for the topic of the discourse. Okay, many of the attempt to represent semantic content is a notion of proposition. If we ask about the content of each discourse, there is a kind of proposition for each sentence. What is proposition? For example, look at this example: John hit Mary. If I ask you about the proposition underlying this sentence, you may say that this is a kind of action of hit, and there are two arguments, John and Mary. So this line is a kind of proposition, okay, which consists the underlying structure of the sentence. For many cognitive psychologists who produce text content analysis, the propositions contained in the representation are to be treated as what speakers have in their minds after they have read a piece of text. Okay, if you read a piece of text, after reading that text, what speakers have in their minds is a kind of proposition. You look here, we call it underlying semantic representation. Okay, we call this kind of proposition as underlying semantic representation. Again, look at this example: Peter is going to Paris next week. If I ask you about the prepositions, underlying this sentence, you may say that it consists of two kind of, preposition, or two kind of semantic underlying construction, which is go to. The first one is go to, which consists of two arguments, Peter and Paris. And the next one is the time, next week. These are, we call them underlying, semantic representation. So these kind of preposition are the underlying semantic representation of the first sentence. So this is the relationship between sentences and the prepositions. Again, for example, look at these two kind of example. Example number A: Romulus, the legendary founder of Rome, took the women of the Sabine by force. And the other one, B: Cleopatra's downfall, laying her foolish trust in the fickle political figures of the Roman world. You see here, they are the same. These two sentences are the same, according to the length of the sentence, okay? They are the same. But the preposition and the sentences as a semantic underlying representation of two sentences are different. For example, look at the sentence number 1. If I ask you about the prepositions underlying this sentence, you may talk about these four kind of semantic representation. The first one, took Romulus women by force. The second one, found Romulus and Rome. And the third one, legendary Romulus. And the last one, Sabine women. But look at the second sentence. It may have 8 kind of semantic representation or prepositions. The first one, because, between A and B. The second one, fell down, Cleopatra, which is the by A we mean fell down, Cleopatra. And the third one, trust, Cleopatra figures. This is the preposition number B. And number 4, foolish trust. Number 5, fickle figures. Number 6, political figures. Number 7, part of figures, wall. And number 8, Roman world. You see here, as I said, these two sentences are the same according to the length of this sentence, but the prepositions underlying each sentence, the number of prepositions are different in these two kind of sentences. So people recalled prepositions, as I told you, higher up the hierarchy more easily than those in subordinate positions, and the highest preposition in the hierarchy is an obvious candidate for being considered the topic preposition of the text. So if we consider each sentence as a kind of hierarchy, okay, you see here, the topmost is the best candidate for being the topic of each sentence or each text. So beside content, other aspects like staging, thematization, photograph, visual factors have an effect on memory representation. The last, the last title which I want to talk about it in this session is the problems. I think this is the last one, maybe. The problems with the preposition-based representation of discourse content. There are some problems, based of this prepositional, view. One of these, problems is that despite the appearance of a highly formal and therefore objective type of approach, the preposition-based analysis of natural language text is inevitably subjective. So when this kind of view, preposition-based representation is a kind of subjective view, so there are some problems, according to this kind of view. For example, look at this, example. Memory for text content, story grammar. Some linguists believe that the representation of text content is found in a way often referred to as story grammar. Okay, some linguists believe that when we recall the text, it's a kind of story grammar. For example, Mary heard the ice cream man coming down the street. She remembered her birthday money and rushed into the house. You see here, again, it was generally found that components at the top of the hierarchy were most readily recalled or incorporated in the summaries. A more important objection from the discourse analysis point of view to the type of analysis who have investigated narrative is that their decision regarding the content of the text they analyze are arbitrary and subjective. So these are again two problems based on that propositional view, because our interpretation is a kind of arbitrary interpretation and subjective interpretation. So there are some problems based on that propositional view. Okay, the last one. You see here, representing text content as a network. We can, show the text content by a kind of network. Okay, this model is computational and has its origin in the sentence parsing model. You see this. You look at this example. A great black and yellow rocket stood in a desert. If I ask you about the network in this sentence, you can show it by two kind of network. The first one is grammatical network. Look at it. Rocket, a great black and yellow stood in a desert. You see here, we show all of those grammatical markers like a, in, a. You see, this is a kind of grammatical network. All of these words related to one subject, rocket. Okay, but this is a kind of grammatical network. The other network which we can show the content of each sentence is by conceptual network. You see here, rocket, great, black, yellow, stand, desert. Okay, you see here, there aren't those grammatical elements like in, a, and. You see here, this is just based on conceptual network, because because of that we just use those conceptual words like great, black, yellow, stand, desert. You see, again, though all of these lines are related to the fixed subject, rocket. You see here, accordingly, this node sharing, we call it node sharing, is a graphic correlates of topic. These networks show that one node, you see here, is shared by all the individual sentences which are the best candidate for topic. So this node sharing, and this shared node which belongs to all of these lines is the best candidate for being the topic of the sentence. So if I ask you about the topic of this sentence, you can say that the rocket is the best candidate for the topic of the sentence. So in this view, we have a kind of network, two kind of network: the grammatical network, as you see here, and the conceptual network, as you see here in this graphic correlates of topic. You see here, and the shared node is the best candidate for being the topic of the sentence. Okay, in this part and in this session, I talk about the formal markers in Paratone, as I told you. Then I talked about the relationship between discourse topic and discourse content, and the hierarchical structure of each sentence. And I told you that the topmost element in each hierarchy is the best candidate for the topic of that, fragment of discourse. There are some prepositions, underlying the each sentence. For example, like this example, underlying, we call it underlying semantic representation. You see here, maybe there are differences between sentences in underlying semantic representation, as you see in these examples. And then I talk about the problems of preposition-based representation. I talk about the arbitrariness and subjective problem of each prepositional view. And at last, I talk about the representing text content as a network, grammatical network, as you see here, and the conceptual network you see here. And at last, I told that these networks show that one node is shared by all the individual sentences, which are the best candidate for being the topic of that sentence. Okay, thank you for your attention. That's enough for today, and goodbye.